Welcome to this episode of our podcast. Today, we are joined by Dr. Francisco Alvarado, a passionate advocate for disability rights and employment equity. Dr. Alvarado has dedicated over 3 decades to public service, focusing on improving the lives of individuals with disabilities. As the Assistant Director of the Illinois Department of Human Services, Division of Rehabilitation Services, he has pioneered policies and programs that empower Latinos, immigrants, refugee communities, and others. Join us as we explore his insight on the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, WIOA, the ongoing challenge faced by people with disabilities in the workforce, and his commitment to bridging the prosperity gap. Plus, we will hear about his inspiring volunteer work with the youth on the autism spectrum and his involvement in disability initiatives. Let's dive in. Today, we are featuring Francisco Alvarado. We appreciate the opportunity to learn from your experience in vocational rehabilitation and employment practices and policies that address the needs of underserved working age minorities with disabilities, including immigrants, refugees, and asylees. Francisco, to begin, could you please introduce yourself and share some specifics about your professional background and experiences in VR and employment?
First of all, thank you for this opportunity, and it's a pleasure, to be here with you today. I'm Francisco Alvarado, and my career initiated just about 40 years ago in the area of vocational rehabilitation. In terms of my educational background, I have a doctor's degree in medical science, and I'm also a master's degree in vocational rehabilitation services. In the path in regards to my career, I chose the path to focus on vocational rehabilitation. I initiated it in this area, about 40 years ago within the community. So it's been a tremendous journey for me that has allowed me to grow and better understand and serve my community.
Given your important role in state vocational rehabilitation systems over the years, could you reflect on some of your work with initiatives such as ADOPT or PRIDE and COLLEAD that have influenced and shaped the future of vocational rehabilitation practices and employment?
Sure. Thank you for the question. I think it's very appropriate and very well stated. Within my career in vocational rehabilitation within the state system of VR, I performed many duties and many tasks within the division of vocational rehabilitation here in Illinois for 32 years. In that trajectory, there were many experiences as a vocational rehabilitation professional that I came across. And one of them was the number of barriers that hard to serve communities were facing in terms of being able to access vocational rehabilitation services. And one of the distinctiveness that I found was that the many different communities that composes the state of Illinois, they come from different parts of the world. They have, they speak, there's about, 21 primary languages that are spoken here in Illinois. And this system is here to serve everyone in the state, all people with disabilities and all disabilities. One of the biggest challenges and barriers was to be able to create a system that was accessible to everyone. There were language barriers, there's cultural understanding barriers in society. There still continues to be many stigmas of hiring a person with a disability to enter employment. So these were the areas that we were faced with through these 32 years. And in being able to address some of these barriers, this is where the idea came to create these important projects like ADOPT and PRIDE. ADOPT pretty much is the brainchild of Dr. Rushi Hussain from the University of Illinois here in Chicago. And working with her, we were able to establish and develop a process to educate community organizations that were close to the vocational rehabilitation program, and also expose these barriers and challenges to the vocational rehabilitation counselors and coordinators and supervisors of the office to understand that their offices were there to be able to address the needs of everyone. How we began to look into these areas was first to determine what some of these barriers were. So once these barriers were identified through the projects, we were able to build a toolbox for vocational rehabilitation counselors, coordinators, and supervisors so they can better be able to design their offices in a way that they were more accessible to individuals from different cultural backgrounds who were limited English proficient and were in need of these resources and supports. Because in my 45 years of vocational rehabilitation services within the state and the community, I understood and developed the understanding and saw and lived that importance that people with disabilities bring to the platform of our communities in terms of employment and resources. People with disabilities have a very distinct viewpoint of how they see things in the world. They bring very important insights on how to continue to create a healthy environment in our communities because they live experiences that other people without disabilities do not experience day to day. So this is how we pretty much brought together the creation of these initiatives to address these barriers and to overcome them. And in terms of Pride was a solution to one of the issues that we found within the ADOPT initiative, that we identified that many immigrants and refugees and asylum seekers really had very little understanding of the importance of self-advocacy in terms of being able to access services within the division. Pride pretty much was geared towards an educational process and documentation that was built to educate people with disabilities on how they can be better self-advocates, access services through the VR system, how to interact with their vocational rehabilitation counselor, and ask and request resources and supports so that they can reach their goals and their outcomes in their daily life.
As a council member of COLLEAD now, could you explain your role within the council and why this council is particularly important to you, and what specific accomplishments you've seen in this initiative?
Sure. For me specifically, it motivates me tremendously, and I have a great deal of passion to help in building empowerment within the communities. So as part of the council, I see that an opportunity for me to be able to share my experiences in the field of rehabilitation and disability issues within the community with the COLLEAD members. What I've seen in the council is a tremendous growth in each one of the members of the council. Each one of them are tremendous in terms of their resources and insights that they bring to the table within the council. And from the get-go and from the start, I've seen how each member has really grown and developed their leadership skills and their experiences as people with disabilities and their stories of overcoming so many challenges and barriers is really a powerful story. It's a very powerful experience that as part of the council and as a member supporting the council, that I've learned so much from them through this process. But at the same time, it has been a tremendous honor to see how each one of them, through the meetings and development of their understanding of how important their role and activity is within their communities has been a tremendous opportunity and a pleasure for me to get to know everyone in the council and to see how each one of them has grown in their capacities to be self-advocates and advocate for the community. They are a tremendous source of information and resources, and I see that they're going to continue to grow and to be a very powerful entity to create some change in our communities.
We now have CoLead, which is a successor to Adopt and Pride. What distinguishes CoLead from other initiatives focused on disability and employment?
I think the true distinction is that it's not just focused on helping individuals try to find employment, but it's focused on trying to bring together the collective knowledge and information that is available in the communities, and it's available to employers, and it's available to agencies, state, federal, local government agencies, about how we can all come together to address some of these barriers. I see the council members as individuals that are embedded in their communities that I find, with their experience and the skills that they've acquired and have developed as members of CoLead, to be individuals that are going to inspire their communities and individuals out there that they come in contact, to begin to change the paradigm of the stigma and the barriers in regards to the hiring of people with disabilities. So CoLead is very distinctive from the other organizations and initiatives that I've been engaged with throughout the years, as I see these council of individual leaders that are going to spin off into the communities to begin to create change that I believe is going to be an ongoing movement that is going to be permanent and not just, a one-time initiative. Because as each one of these members of this council continues to grow and develop, they're going to continue to advocate. They're going to continue to work towards eliminating barriers. They're going to continue to educate employers and individuals that they come in contact. So it's going to be ongoing, continuous, and it won't end with whether the council continues to its work, or whether the council expands in different formats or different structures. But what they've acquired through being a participant of CoLead is going to continue to grow and flourish in their daily careers and lives in terms of who they impact, because they're very powerful individuals with tremendous experience. And I believe that their experience and what they've learned through being part of CoLead is going to be inspirational to all those that they come in contact with.
So CoLead is coming to an end. I'm just wondering if there are some next steps that CoLead can take to further its mission in supporting underserved populations with disabilities.
I believe that the work of CoLead is going to continue through each one of the members in their own specific, particular way or fashion in terms of the next steps that they take in their lives. If there's an opportunity to continue with the mission of CoLead, I think it would be to bring it to a second stage. At this second stage would be to have each one of the current members in CoLead to be able to bring additional supports and resources and members to the council, and to have it to continue to grow and develop, and bring it to a different platform where in today's world of technology, in our ability to communicate with the masses through possibly social media or other types of platforms or formats, to create a national co-lead social discussion, to have these co-lead members that have been the foundation of co-lead to become very strategic warehouse of knowledge and information for government agencies and employers, organizations, about how they can create a more accessible and more equitable and more of a structured mindfulness and awareness of the importance of hiring people with disabilities and understanding the value that they bring to the world of work.
Let me rewind the clock and take you back to the days you decided to become a VR specialist. What inspired you to pursue a career in vocational rehabilitation counseling?
Primarily, early on at the end of my career, I had two options. I could have taken the path of going into the clinical area, or going down the path of a more administrative structure, or having an opportunity to work with individuals in their growth and development as in terms of their career paths. I took a really deep dive in looking at the clinical care part, and I felt that if I was going to do something with my life, I really wanted to impact as many individuals as possible. In the clinical path, I would be able to attend to one individual at a time as a patient or a client, and really you don't see the total outcome because you address the issue they come with, right? In the administrative side, well, yes, we could impact systems and things that needed to be changed and be able to manage. But I felt that vocational rehabilitation gave me the opportunity to really work with the person in a comprehensive, holistic way. Because if you help a person become self-sufficient, you're not only helping the individual maintain their health in terms of their physical, mental health, but you're also helping them maintain the structure of their family, become involved in their community, and be productive in the areas of their life goals, such as employment, education, etc. So I saw that I could have a bigger impact in assisting and making change in the communities, especially my community, which is the Hispanic community and Latino community in those years was very isolated and had very little opportunities to be able to access these very important resources. Early on, I became aware of these barriers in my career, and I looked at an opportunity that came before me to become one of the first bilingual counselors here in the state of Illinois, and working with an agency here in the community that we started out from zero to where it is currently. Currently, it's an agency that has now been around almost for 40 years, and I'm happy to have said that I've been a part of that from the inception, from the foundation. But more importantly, I feel fulfilled, and I think that for me, I made the right choice of taking this path and working with selecting and choosing to become a vocational rehabilitation professional throughout my career and life. I believe it was very fulfilling. I learned a great deal from people with disabilities. Myself, as a person with disability, I never really share a lot about that because I really want to see people to see me from the perspective of what I can actually contribute and not based on my disability. But overall, that's what inspired me and created the passion within me to continue to work in the area of vocational rehabilitation, because you really see the outcome, at the end when a person has completed their master's degree, their doctor's degree, and they're working and contributing, when they've gone through a vocational program and acquired their certifications, and now they're self-sufficient. And one of the things that has been so satisfying to me over the years, as a counselor, I placed many people with disabilities on the job, and many of them today are retiring from their job. And as they've had contact with me, many of them, their parents thought that since that child in their family had a person who was disabled, that person wasn't actually going to be able to be productive and supportive of their family. But in reality, in many cases, the child within that family with the disability was the one that's actually was the strongest producer and most productive of their family and supported everyone in their family versus many of their brothers and sisters that didn't have a disability. So the outcome of these experiences throughout my lifetime really taught me tremendous amount of understanding of how things actually really work. And so I'm very grateful for everyone that I've met throughout the years and through the journey of having worked in this field.
Indeed, VR is a learning and yet fulfilling experience.
Yes.
And this takes me to my next question, which you've already alluded to. Can you share a particularly rewarding experience that you've had while working with individuals with disabilities in your VR practice?
Yes, I've had so many, but one area that is really close to my heart, and that we initiated within the VR system when I started was working with leaders in the area of addressing the needs of the migrant seasonal farm workers in the state and nationally. I had the opportunity to work with mentors of mine that were in this field, such as I'm going to name them anyway: Jerry Jimenez and Michael Lennis and many other individuals. And through them, I became involved with understanding the barriers and the lives and the hardships that migrant seasonal farm workers face every day. And so working in vocational rehabilitation and working with people with disabilities, they approached us to see if we could develop an initiative to continue to provide vocational rehabilitation counseling to this population here in Illinois. And I'm happy to say that we initiated that process. We've helped many families of migrant seasonal farm workers throughout the years. It's a process now that is part of the vocational rehabilitation system here in Illinois, where migrant seasonal farm workers can access these services and be able to continue to move on with their lives. The uniqueness of being a farm worker is that if you have a little understanding of farm work, it's very dangerous, and it's one of the areas where most people end up acquiring or developing a limitation to be able to perform that work. So they become disabled and they need to be able to move on to do something differently based on their capacities. So that's really close to my heart, and I'm happy to say that we maintained that project for over 30 years. It was a project that I think about constantly, because these individuals are the individuals that put the food on our table every day. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't be able to purchase our groceries at a reasonable price.
What strategies do you think are the best tools to empower individuals with disabilities to advocate for themselves in their workplace environments?
I think the first thing, the foremost thing, is that as individuals, we need to be self-aware of what our needs are in order to be successful. So I think providing them with the tools and the resources to understand their capacities and abilities and how to continue to grow in their career aspirations. So I think that this is where VR plays a really important role. Having a vocational counselor work with you to understand your capacities, your limitations, and how you could overcome them. Once you know yourself and you know your abilities and capacities and the areas that you need to continue to educate yourself on and grow, then by entering employment, you can work with the employer to be able to eliminate or create a work setting that is compatible with a person's limitations so that you can be successful. In reality, as a person with disability, you need to be able to do the job. You need to be able to perform the work that the employer requires. So to be informed of that and to have a clear understanding of these capacities is really important. Secondly, an individual with disability has had various encounters in their lives and has a very different perspective about how to address things because they've constantly been challenged throughout their lifetime. They have a very keen understanding that when they see a barrier, they're always looking in terms of how to overcome it. And that is really important. And to be able to, how do you harness that experience and use it to become a powerful self-advocate? And I think it's important for them to develop these self-advocacy skills so that they can become a voice for themselves and for other people around them to create change within any kind of employment setting, okay, in a way that is productive, in a way that is collaborative, you know. So I think building those leadership skills to be a good self-advocate is really important to be successful on the job. But at the same time, they need, you know, the counseling, the guidance, the resources in order for them to be able to get to that point in being successful. Because a person with disability is going to do well in school. They're going to have good skills to be able to perform the tasks on the job. They have very good soft skills. And once they're placed in employment, most employers will tell you, this is my best employee. Okay. And I wish I had another 10 of them. You know, so based on that and their ability to self-advocate for themselves, to be able to progress within their position, to be able to apply for promotions, to be able to get into higher positions, to be able to be in leadership positions and wherever they're employed is key for them to continue on that path.
In your opinion, what are some of the most pressing issues facing individuals with disabilities in the workforce today, and how could they be addressed?
I think that the most pressing issue is that even though there's been, you know, a lot of education out there and a lot of media information about the importance of hiring people with disabilities, and there's been legislation, federal legislation, national legislation, local. Even with all of those advancements that have occurred in the last 40, 50 years, there still continues to be a very keen stigma about hiring a person with disability that is misinformation. And I think that we need to continue to address these stigmas and the misinformation that is out there about hiring a person with disability. That's why I'm so happy to be a part of CoLead, because CoLead, in my opinion, is a stepping stone to addressing these issues that are continuing to affect people with disabilities, and that is impoverishing employment settings where they don't hire people with disabilities that would enrich those in settings or those career tracks, because they would be bringing in individuals that have very specialized and particular perspectives on how to work within the performance of employment opportunities that would be tremendous in terms of producing, whether they're working in an area of production, whether they're providing a direct service, whether they're designing or engineering or in science, their perspective and understanding the way they see the world is tremendous insight that would enrich all areas of employment. And I think co-lead and its members and and how each one of the members is developing these leadership skills. As they become leaders, I'm sure they're going to integrate into organizations, into different other councils and other boards and organizations, and bring these skills to light.
How should professionals stay informed about the change in legislation or policies related to disability rights and vocational rehabilitation? And how should they integrate this knowledge into their practice?
Yeah. Well, I think there's always opportunity, as a person who is in a professional area, or whether it's you're working in an employment setting, there's always opportunities available around you to reach out to get to know someone with a disability. I think that we could, always access and research what's happening at the legislative level, if you're really interested in that, which we all should be interested in it, because it's important to understand what's happening civically. But the real change occurs, in my opinion, is within you as an individual, as a person, when you get to know others that are facing specific barriers. So if you become familiar with and become an understanding of these barriers through the life experience of a person with a disability, you would better understand the barriers and how you could make some changes in your life personally, and then in your work setting, in terms of your work environment, and especially if you're in a position of leadership where you can actually make changes, then by understanding the life of a person with a disability or various disabilities, you'd be more inspired, more focused and motivated to understand the importance of eliminating the barriers in the area of your daily life. So I would say, I would invite everyone to, reach out to disability organizations in your area, get to know people with disabilities, get to know their stories, get to know how they've been successful in their lives, and how they've gotten to where they are in their current life. We as individuals, I think we change by getting to know others and building relationships and friendships with individuals. And, I am very grateful to have, within my inner circle, and to know many people with disabilities who have really impacted me and changed my perspective on how, I function day to day. And I think that in itself was the most motivating aspect in terms of me being able to identify what I needed to change, what I needed to look at that would really impact and improve the lives of people with disabilities, to be able to participate in my community.
How should professionals and counselors and disability advocates collaborate with employers to create inclusive work environments that accommodate individuals with disabilities?
That's a really good question, because you're putting together one component whose responsibility is to help people with disabilities access employment. And then you have, on the other hand, businesses that are in the business of making money and supporting themselves and having their business grow. So I think the most important area right now that I would suggest that is key is to, number one, have the counselors and the vocational system really, in a very straightforward open fashion, be able to communicate with potential businesses and employers and other organizations that are hiring, to communicate with them that the VR system really has many resources and supports to help them really help increase their bottom line by hiring people with disabilities. Because once a business or an employer hires a person with a disability, he's actually opening up his business to a sector of the community that their business is probably not targeting in terms of business. And so that's one area I think that needs to be looked at very carefully and strategically. I believe that it has not fully been addressed. But overall, in a very comprehensive way, both entities need each other. Employers need the VR system. Employers need to hire people with disabilities because they need good employees. So they're all in accord, they're all in agreement. So how do we get the three components to be able to work in a collaborative fashion is that we need to create the platform for all three of them to be able to communicate effectively. I believe that the system is sort of fragmented right now, because one sector is doing all this work that the other sector is not familiar with and is not aware of. And the person with a disability doesn't know how to access the VR system. And the employer has very limited information in regards to what VR can actually do for them to be able to maintain and support a person with disability on the job. So coordinating these three factors is key for us to be able to move forward and improve the process of the system. I believe that there are many good leaders out there, and there are individuals that really wish to get to this point. There's tremendous interest in the workforce systems right now that they're looking into ensuring that they're integrating people with disabilities, and it is a topic of discussion in all major areas. But it's the lack of action. It's the lack of implementation and coordination among the systems that at this point, I believe is key in order for this to be successful. I believe that all the structures and the systems are there. Okay, there's nothing new that needs to be created or developed. It's now the coordination and the implementation of how these systems communicate, operate, and integrate themselves to be able to provide a holistic path for people with disabilities to be successful in the area of employment.
Talking about accommodations, how should professionals and employers approach addressing the unique needs and challenges that individuals with disabilities face in the workplace?
Accommodations is, in my opinion, is an area of a lot of miscommunication, because in reality, we all need accommodations, okay? Whether you have a disability or you don't have a disability. If you're going to start a new job, a new position, whether you have a disability or without a disability, you're entering a new environment. So, and all employers pretty much know that, you hire somebody and you want to keep that person on the job, right? And initiate their training. So with that, what basically you do is you see what is it that this individual needs in order to perform their tasks. And a person with a disability may not need more than just any other person who walks into a new position. Because a person with a disability, by the time they're looking for employment, has already addressed most of their barriers. If they're able to get to an interview, for a position, for a job, and then the barriers of transportation, communication have been addressed because they were able to perform the task successfully in their interview and they were hired, right? Now, the only other aspect may be something within the work environment that can easily be addressed. And if they're working with a vocational rehabilitation counselor, any kind of on-the-job accommodation can be performed and can be addressed by their vocational rehabilitation counselor, that many times would be at no cost to the employer. I would suggest for employers to see a person with disability just as they address anybody else that walks in through the door, and to, in a very natural way, assist that employee to be able to perform the task that the employer wishes to be done in the way that they require it. And if there is something that needs to be added in the process or eliminated or changed, that it be analyzed so that that person can be able to perform that task. Because the only benefit here is going to be a benefit to the employer and to the business. I'll guarantee you, and there's many studies and there's research that's done, that most accommodations are very low cost and most of them are very low tech. So I would suggest that, employers be educated and they be informed of the fact that most accommodations are very doable and very low tech and at a very low cost. And that employers would hopefully understand that they really don't need to do extraordinary changes in their work environment when they hire somebody with a disability. That they just need to look at the situation in terms of the task that they require in order for the position to be fulfilled, and that the job structure is consistent with what they wish the employee to do.
The last question I have is, what resources or support system do you typically recommend to individuals with disabilities who are navigating their career paths?
In terms of the resources, it's an area where, depending, on what track you're looking for in terms of your career, that you need to really identify. I think the hardest thing to do is to identify a vocational goal, to work with a counselor to identify your passion and to identify the area that you wish to pursue. Once you have a target and you have a vocational goal, then you can begin to build or create a path towards that goal. And each step towards that goal may require you to be able to identify some resources or supports that you may need. Through the VR system, I believe in wholeheartedly that vocational counselors will work with a person with a disability to be able to identify those resources and bring those resources to the individual so that they can be successful. But as a person with a disability in starting that path, I think it's really important for them to do their own research in terms of what areas they wish to pursue as a lifelong goal, and to identify the areas that inspire them, motivate them, because you need that passion to be able to be successful on that path. Build that passion within you as a resource so that you have the energy and the focus to be able to overcome any kind of barriers that you face throughout this process. Then the resources will come as long as you have that passion and that energy and you continue to strive to get to your goal.
Any final word before we wrap up?
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit of my experiences throughout the years in the area of my career. I'd like to end with just saying that it's really important to continue to empower people with disabilities and to continue to share our stories whenever we come in contact with an opportunity to share and to educate individuals about the importance of hiring people with disabilities, that we not let that opportunity go by, that we take it very seriously, and that we focus on educating as many of individuals that we come in contact day by day, because basically, we'll change our community's mindset person by person. The information is out there, but it's not until you have a personal experience with someone, or you have a personal contact and understanding, and you can have a discussion with someone in person, that you can actually change a person. So I think change happens person by person. And so with that, I hope that everybody in their daily activities and whoever you come in contact with, you're mindful of being able to educate everyone around you about the importance of creating accessible environments for all. Thanks. It's
really a pleasure working with you, Francisco, and Dr. Rushi Hasnan, and others in the CoLEAD initiative. And thank you for your insight and time.